Does traditional education deliver or fall short in educating and nurturing children? Introducing Aligned Learning Revolution, the show that confronts conventional norms and presents dynamic alternatives to transform education. Host Kahila Sivas tackles the foundational issues within classroom walls and advocates for holistic learning opportunities. It's time to reveal the strength of the innovative, holistic neurogrowth learning approach that goes beyond conventional teaching or tutoring methods, assuring every learner of a stress-free learning journey to unlock their fullest potential. Now, join Kahila Sivas.
Hello and welcome. Today I have the pleasure to meet with Brandy Vega. She is a dynamic entrepreneur, speaker, media guru, and a mother. She is the founder of Dan Can, an innovative tech company. She is the CEO of Vega Media Studio, a leading video production and media studio, and founder of Good Deed Revolution and the Promise to Live Mental Health and Suicide Prevention. At 17 years old, she joined the Army as the broadcaster and public affairs specialist. During her career, she reported for Fox News, produced shows for worldwide audiences, and served in executive position. She also does freelance work for several companies. Brandy's passion also extends to humanitarian work, where she founded her nonprofit organization, the Good Deed Revolution, to promote mental health and suicide prevention. Brandy, welcome to our show. Thank you so much, Brandy, for being here today. I was looking forward to our conversation today.
Yes, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
The first question I have is, you do so many things. Whenever I see you, you're doing lots of different projects. You have a big heart. What are you doing that's so close to you right now currently? What project are you involved in?
Oh, goodness. It's funny because I went to this event and they were saying, "Oh, Brandy, tell them what you do." And I'm like, I don't know how to say what I do. Which one? There's like 5 or 6 different things. So I came up with a new term. I said, I'm a serial entrepreneur and philanthropist that focuses on faith, family, light, and love. Like, that's what I do in a nutshell. But I own a video production and media company called Vega Media Studios. I have a digital authentication company to fight AI deepfakes and manipulated media. We bring truth, trust, and transparency. That's called Dan Can. And then my passion project is my nonprofit, Good Deed Revolution. And our big initiative is called Promise to Live, the number 2 live. And that focuses on suicide prevention and mental health. And I started doing that after I almost lost a child to suicide, not once, but twice.
In our podcast, this show is for parents, teachers, and students. So you're in the right place to talk about this. So what do you noticing in our world and society right now with mental health? What do you see?
Oh, goodness. It's been so hard. I was talking to Nate Randall, who's the CEO of Gab Wireless, and Gab is a safe tech platform for youth, which is one that we used for our child after the second suicide, when we dove in and found that there was sort of this dark web of manipulation and unsafe tech and things. The hardest part, what he said, is we're more connected than we've ever been, but we've never been this disconnected in our entire lives. So, people have this false sense of community and of security and of worth, and it's all manipulated. So that real connection and that real trust, it's like the suicide rate for youth has gone up 71% since 2010. And you look back and you go, okay, well, what's happened since 2010? Well, we got a lot of these smartphones and social media, the disconnection, I'm sure our sleep habits, the media we intake, there's a lot of things that can contribute to it. But I think it's disconnected. It's a lack of hope. It's a lack of belonging. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And that's what we're focused on. I'm one of the lucky ones, actually, that when I almost lost my daughter at 14, she attempted at 12. She did again at 14. And I have a second chance. She's 17 now. She's graduating high school early. She's an incredible artist. She's got a scholarship. And I promised God that if he would save her, I would do whatever work he needed me to do. And so that's kind of what we've been doing, is we've been finding, where are the breakdowns? How can we prevent this? Because it's 100% preventable, but people don't know. And they'll say, Kohila, to me, hey, what signs should I look for? I was like, don't look for signs. don't look for some, I mean, do, but that's not going to save. Like, how often can you tell by looking what people are thinking or feeling? Because we're all fighting battles nobody knows about, right? We
Yes.
conceal. And so I tell people, if they're interested, just ask the honest question. And this is for parents to their children, to your spouse, to your family, to whomever. You ask the honest question, gets an honest answer. Are you feeling suicidal? Studies show you won't plant the idea. Either they are or they aren't. And we're doing a thing with MTV. They have a campaign called Ask. And ask means acknowledge, support, and keep in touch. So just ask. Sometimes we don't know what to do or how to solve the problem. We're afraid of the answer, but just acknowledge and then support them and keep in touch. That's the number one thing. And that's connection, right?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I want to touch on a few things you've told us today, which is not a lot of parents, and I'm not fully aware of it. I know a little bit about it. Tell me about this dark web, because we only talk about what immediately pops up into our, because we give our kids these phones and iPads and all this, right? They're free to do any type of search. There's no censorship whatsoever on the regular internet, but you're talking about even further something else.
Well, I'm just saying there's there's unsafe technology that's used to manipulate people. And we know that, and the big tech companies have said that. That's one of the things I really do love about Gab Wireless is they have filters on there that will ping you if there's nudity or if there's things that keep your children away from that, because you can't monitor them 24/7. They will probably be solicited. They will probably see inappropriate things. And there's a huge issue with sextortion right now that a lot of people don't even know about or aren't talking about. And we're losing, especially males, 14 to 20 at a high rate right now with sextortion, because they'll get into social media platforms, somebody will infiltrate their system, and then they'll either send an inappropriate picture they shouldn't. And this is males and females and adults and children, but they'll either send an inappropriate picture or they'll manipulate whoever the bad guy is, the bad actor on the other line will manipulate you into a photo like they did Taylor Swift. And then they extort you for money. And they'll say, I need $1,000 by, in 2 hours if you can't come up with it. And so we had a story about a 17-year-old boy. He was great student, great athlete, life of the party, everybody's friend. This happened to him, and he ended up taking his own life because he didn't see any other outcome. So it's just dangerous because with our devices, with laptops and phones and smartwatches and stuff, we give people the power to come into our home. His father was quoted as saying, my son went up to bed at 10 p.m. and then his phone was infiltrated, and by 3 a.m. he was murdered by 2 Nigerian men. And that's kind of the way they look at it, even though it was a suicide.
Oh yeah.
They came in and they basically, put him in such a tight spot that he didn't see any way out. So we just have to be careful. I mean, I don't know. The more I know, the more I don't want to give. I've got a 20, almost 2-year-old, and I have a 17-year-old, and I have a 6-year-old. The more I'm seeing with my adult daughters, the less I want to give my 6-year-old. I just don't even want him to have this technology, because we're finding that it can be so, while it's beautiful and it gives you everything you need at your fingertips, there's the good and the bad. So it just has to be a regulation process of how do you manage that.
Yeah, as a person of working with so many families and kids, I've always said I've hosted several summits, and I always said on them that we don't open our door, the front door. Somebody knocks and asks, "Can I go see your son upstairs?" A stranger comes. You don't open the door and say, "Yeah, come on." Oh yeah, make sure you go into his room and also close the doors and be with
Right.
him. We would never do that. We would
We
never do
wouldn't
that.
even consider it, but we do it every day.
It's happening every minute, and sometimes it's in the bathroom too. Like, you, as parents, we have to set rules around, even if we give it, there has to be boundaries, right, of how you use
Right.
this. And it's a tool. It has to
Mhm.
be a tool, and I don't believe in giving anybody less than 6 anything technology and being by themselves. If you're going to do it, you have to have that activity together. We can watch something on iPad, but it's going to be together. You and I
Yeah.
are going to do it together. It's a shared
Mhm.
activity. But leaving it with them and giving phones too early in their life and thinking it's the safe thing to do, like, it's so
It's hard because it's easy.
yeah.
It's easy to give your little one an iPad or an iPhone or whatever and say, entertain yourself. Because the truth is, most of us are addicted to these too. And so it's easier than having to interact. It's just to
Yeah.
give them what they want.
Yeah.
But that's not the answer.
No, absolutely not. And it's as you say, I love how that dad put it, like two people murdered my son. It's
Yeah.
true because that's what happened. Because
Yeah.
if he didn't have that phone, if he didn't that conversation, he would have never been in his world. He would have been
No.
never saw
No, he
that,
was
right?
super excited. They were packing for vacation the next day. He was excited. He was, he was just living his best life. And then this comes in, and youth especially don't know how to handle something that
Yep.
difficult. And so they just respond in a quick way and without really weighing out all the consequences. And then there's the fear and the shame and all the things that happen. I mean, I've actually had somebody do this to me through my email, send an email to me from me saying, "Hey, I have video of you watching porn from your own computer. And if you don't send me $1,000 in Bitcoin, I'm going to share it with everyone in your network." Now, just imagine if I had actually watched porn on my computer.
Mhm.
Then I would have been having a panic attack thinking they're
Yes.
sending this. They hacked into my camera in my laptop, but I knew that's not something I do. And I knew that they were lying to me. But imagine if, if the shoe was on the other foot, and
Yes.
maybe you had done something that you weren't proud of. They put people in these positions that are just so horrible, and there's so much shame and stigma and fear of this, that it's like $1 billion industry, multi-billion, of extortion and fraud, financial fraud. There's also, even with manipulated media, this is why I'm so passionate about my tech company, DanCan. It
Yes.
stands for Digital Authentication Network, Certified Non-Negotiable. With AI, deepfake, manipulated, and synthetic media, we literally live in a world where you can't believe anything that you see, hear, or read.
Yes.
I mean, I remember when I was younger, we would just, if we saw something on TV, we knew it was real.
Mhm.
Unless it was a movie and we knew that then it was fake. Now it's like they hold competitions, and they bring the best people around the globe, and they can't decipher what's fake. So we're having to authenticate content before it goes out so people know it's trustworthy, it's truthful, and it's transparent. Who put the media out there? When did they do it? If anybody edits it, alters it, one pixel, one frame, anything,
Mhm.
then it will show up as altered. Because
Mhm.
unfortunately, there was a company just a few weeks back, a month or two ago, where their CFO sent $25 million through a deep fake, and the
Mhm.
company lost $25 million. So it's like financial ruin, it's character assassination, there's extortion, there's so much that can happen, political propaganda and
Mhm.
manipulation. So I'm on a mission as a mom and as a human to eliminate these people who seek to destroy trust and transparency, and try to get people to go down this dark web and to end their life, or destroy their character. So
Yeah.
it's interesting how things have progressed. I love AI for a lot of things, but there's also so many negative side effects with all the tech.
Absolutely. Yeah. It could be too. It could be. It's a tool. Could be used in both directions. For
Yeah.
bad and the good. Tell me a little bit about, just to go back to give parents who may be struggling with this issue in their house. Well, when your daughter, you said, was to trying to end her life, how did you actually find out? Like, how do you open up and ask her? Like, did you
Yeah.
just ask her?
So the first time that it happened, she was 12 years old. And I got a call from the school saying she was being rushed to the hospital. They didn't know what was wrong with her. And we ended up finding out later that it was a suicide attempt. And she was so embarrassed and ashamed. She was 12 years old. So was I. Single mom. I felt like the world's worst parent. And I thought, I must be so horrible that my own child would rather be dead than be with me. And I just felt like such a failure, because I'm running a company, I'm running a nonprofit, I'm doing all this stuff. I volunteer at the hospital. I had just adopted a baby through foster care. I had just been a surrogate for a family. I had a baby for a family who couldn't have kids. And I was doing all this as a single parent. And I had a good relationship with my kids. So it was really, really a shocker to me. And I taught suicide prevention, because I had a suicide attempt as a youth at 12 years old, and I've always been passionate about it. So I would go with our attorney general in the state and go teach suicide prevention in the schools. Here's the signs, here's what you look for. And I saw some of those with her, but it was also preteen. puberty, going into junior high. It was like all these things. So they start to pull back. They start to be a little snarky, all the things that
Mm.
teens and preteens usually do. So I didn't take that as a symptom. So after it happened, I did not tell anybody. She did not tell anybody. It was like a dirty, dark secret we covered for 2 years because of just the stigma and shame associated with it. She said she wouldn't do it again. And then she, we found ourselves in the same situation. Thankfully, her friend had the courage to call 911. Police woke us up in the middle of the night. We found her in time. We got her to Primary Children's. Primary Children's did not even have a bed for her. They had so many children, 8 to 18, trying to end their lives. And I was distraught. I was having a breakdown in the room, and the doctor came in and she was having a breakdown too. She's like, we've never seen anything like this. There's an uptick in suicide attempts and mental health, and we don't know what to do. And we didn't know for almost, gosh, it was almost 2 days if she was going to live or have permanent disability or what might happen. And she was really practically incoherent. And I was just praying, just give me a second chance, give me a second chance. I'll do anything. And I had volunteered at the hospital doing Nobody Dies Alone in spiritual care. I sat in critical care, trauma, like all the floors with the worst patients. And I had been through a lot of this, but when you're sitting there looking at your kid, it's a lot different. And she's 14 and she's just this little cute kid. And I'm seeing my baby laying there thinking, like, how did we get to this point? And so it was the second day. I'm in my car and I just had a breakdown because I'd been spending all day, in the hospital room with her, and it's during COVID, which is also bad. And I'm trying to find resources and I'm looking everywhere. Like, where do I go if she lives? Like, what do I do? What vetted resources? What does my insurance take? What does my insurance cover? Can I afford this? Like all the things that you look at. And I went on my personal Facebook page and I just said, I did the most vulnerable video I've ever done. And it was really hard for me. But I said, I'm here at the hospital. I'm not sure what's going to happen with my child. I need help. Where do I go? What do I do? And that video went viral overnight, 12,000 views. I had hundreds of messages from people who had gone through something similar. People like you and others who I would never expect. It's like, oh, just looking in, seems like they've got a great life. Everything's going well, perfect family, none of this stuff. And they're saying, I lost my son, or I lost my mom, or I lost my brother, whatever it was. And I used to be a news reporter. I was in the Army as a broadcast journalist and public affairs specialist. I had graduated high school early. I was a reporter for Fox News at 20. Like, I've had an interesting life and career. And so I worked in media for quite a while, pretty savvy on all the things. But my friends at NBC saw this video I did on my personal page, and they reached out to me that next day and they said, hey, would you share your story on the news? I was like, are you kidding me? No, absolutely not. I'm not sharing this. It's painful. It's personal. I will not. And they're like, it's a huge problem. Nobody will talk. And I went back to the hospital and I was in there and I was just praying again. And I got this message loud and clear. So whatever you believe, the inspiration, the prompting, the voice I heard said, Brandy, I'll give you a second chance. There will not be a third. What will you do? And I was like, I'll do anything you want. Anything. What do you want me to do? And shortly after, my daughter woke up and she didn't have any permanent disabilities. And I said to her, are you glad you woke up, or do you wish you really would have died this time? And she said, Mom, I didn't really want to die, but it was too late. And most people don't want to die. They just want to kill what hurts them. They just want to stop the pain, and they don't know how to do that. So that was a big eye opener to me. And we went through the process. She was in the hospital for quite a while. She was in treatment, but it was 2 weeks later. So after that, I was like, okay, what do I need to do? I have a video production company, a studio, I have a nonprofit, I'll do anything. So I came back here and I was reaching out to different groups and saying, how can I support your suicide prevention and mental health missions? Do you need media? What do you need? And I was finding that there was just some things lacking. Things were scattered. It was hard to find. So I started working on that. But it was literally about 2 weeks later, NBC called me back. And they said, Brandy, will you reconsider? Nobody's been willing to talk to us. It's a huge, huge problem. And I thought, am I being challenged? You said you'd do anything. I'm like, oh, really? Come on. And I also thought, if I'm terrified and I've spent my whole career doing scary, dangerous things, and I was on TV most of my life, what does an average parent or person feel like? And if not me, who? So I did it very reluctantly. But what I said was, if you're watching, stop what you're doing and go ask your kid point blank if they're suicidal. The honest questions get honest answers. And after it aired, I had a father reach out to me and he said, "You just saved my daughter's life." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I watched your show. I watched your story on the news. I ran in there to check on her. She had already written a suicide note. She was in the process of trying to end her life. I caught her. I found her. We're at the hospital getting help. Thank you." And then another family messaged me and they said, "Thanks for being so vulnerable. We watched your story on the news. We talked to our 15-year-old son. He confessed he had a plan to end his life this weekend. We're getting him help." So that kind of triggered where we are today with Promise to Live. It's like, all right, if my personal story on local news in Utah could save 2 kids that I know of, what if we could reach, we reach maybe like 15, 20, 30,000 people with that local news show. I thought, what if we could reach 200,000 or 2 million or whatever? And I remembered Live Aid from 1985 when I was a kid. And I thought, when it really matters, people come together. And so we created our first event and we did a show. It was a 3-hour family friendly show with singers, dancers, celebrities, hope, healing resources. And we put it on and we reached 160,000. Last year we did it again. We broke it down though into a kid show and a teen show, which people can see on our website at promisetolive.org. We have all 3 shows on there. So we did a kid, teen, and adult show, and we reached around 400,000 last year.
Nice.
And this year we'll be doing it September 10th. And we think we'll reach a minimum of 1 million plus.
Nice. Yeah.
And this has just been an opportunity for us to do that. And with the Promise to Live campaign, I just got these in, so I'm kind of playing with it. We also have these coins. These are our Promise to Live coins. We call them pocket hugs. On the back, it says, "When times are tough and you don't know what to do, here's a hug from me to you. Call or text 988 if you're struggling." So we're on a mission to give out 100,000 of these, 100,000 of these letters and get 100,000 promises. But here's the promise. I'll share that real quick.
Please.
I know I'm talking a lot, but the promise to live is this: every 40 seconds around the globe, somebody dies by suicide. It takes about 25 to 30 seconds to go online to Promise to Live and make a promise right now. Whether or not you struggle, whether or not you're currently struggling, we want everyone everywhere to make this promise. I promise that if I ever find myself in that hard place or that dark place or just struggling, that I will reach out for help to a friend, a family member, a trusted resource like NAMI or AFSP, or call or text 988. In the United States, 988's been out 1.5 years and only about 18% of the people know about it. It's like the 24/7 hotline you can call or text for help. So we really want to get people to do that. The second part of the Promise to Live is to, once you make the promise, share it on your social media platforms. When we start talking about these things in the open, we bring light to them. It starts conversations, it stops stigma. And when we can stop the stigma, we can start saving more lives.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing and thank you for everything you're doing. I was getting goosebumps, half of the stuff you were telling me, because I am a suicide survivor. So I wish I had that promise to live when I did it. I didn't, but now I do.
Yeah.
I promise to live.
Thank you. And me too. I went through this and I had a young man who has been struggling and he attempted suicide recently. And I connected with him and I said, "You got to make me a promise to live." And he did. And he just messaged me a few days ago and he said, "I'm really, really struggling tonight, but I made you a promise and I'm going to stick to it. I'm here, but I need help." I said, "There's help. You're not alone. Like, there are resources." So for the last 3 years, I've kind of made it my mission to find all of these resources and put them into one place. So if somebody goes to our site or if they have resources, reach out to me. But we're taking vetted resources and we're putting them in one place because it's not about ego. It's about impact. It's not about money. It's about meaning. It's getting people the help and the hope that they need and the resources at their fingertips when they need it. And what makes our shows is that we're not trying to build our own audience. So we're putting on a show. We're doing a weekly TV show that's going to be launching in the next month or 2. But with our live stream on September 10th, if anyone wants to share the live stream, we're providing a feed, super easy. All they do is click a link and it allows us to send it through their channel on September 10th during our broadcast. And we're sending our message on multiple platforms, multiple devices, so that people are getting the information that they need where they are from the people they already know, trust, and follow. So your audience could say, "Oh yeah, I trust Kohila and we've got, this community and this connection. So if she's sharing Promise to Live, like, I'm going to watch that," and it will trigger and say, "You're live. and then all your people can see it. So we were just trying to bring the message to the people where they are, how they needed it through people that they trust. And so we've been working with some influencers and CEOs, survivors, celebrities. But I mean, all of us have a circle of influence, and you don't have to be big time to make a difference.
Yeah.
You just have
Even
to want to participate.
yeah, even with few number of audience, you can help one person. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be huge. Number
Yeah.
doesn't have to be huge. Yes.
Because that
Thank
one
you.
person was maybe my kid or your kid or you or me. And it's like, sometimes life is hard and we might not want to live for ourselves, you know? And this is what I told my daughter. I have the cutest little 6-year-old boy that I adopted from foster care. And they're best friends. My 17-year-old, my 6-year-old are best friends. And I said, you
Yes.
know, if you don't want to live for yourself some days, can you live for him? I know that's a little manipulative. I get it. But if it keeps my child alive because she's choosing to make a commitment, a pledge, a promise to stick around for her brother, and it gets her through these challenging times because life gets better. Aren't you glad you're here? I'm so
Yes.
glad I lived.
Yep.
I'm so
Absolutely.
glad my daughter's here and I think she loves her life now. But
Yes.
there was 5 hard years where she didn't.
Yes.
And now we finally kind of, I think, made it to this next level where we've learned how to cope. We've learned how to connect. We've learned how to converse. And those are things that we're teaching. We're doing monthly mental health town halls with Silicon Slopes here, where we're bringing in CEOs and executives, bringing things to work, because whatever you do at work, you're bringing home. Whatever you're doing at home, you bring to work. So we're trying to educate people on tips and tools and resources and how you can get through it. But that's been my mission, is learning, learning, learning. And the more I learn, the more I want to share, because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I never knew all the resources out there, and it's
Yeah.
helping me a lot.
And a lot of the time, as you said, there's also resources out there, but how do you know it's the right one? Because
Yeah.
it could be, you need to validate it too, right?
Yeah. And that's a hard one because, it's like some people have really interesting ideas on what works and it might work for them. And I think that's great. But if we're sharing stuff, I want to make sure it's, we're having safe messaging and we're doing things that are not going to cause more harm than good. And so we've teamed up and implemented best practices from all the major mental health and suicide prevention groups globally and in the United States to do that.
It's amazing. So why are our youth doing this? Like, why are they in this place to begin with? Did you come across any research or do you have any
Well,
theory?
I mean, a lot of it's kind of what we talked about. It's the disconnection, it's the lack of belonging, it's the lack of community. Like all these kids go to school and they don't feel like they have real friends. They kind of feel like they have friends online. There was a girl overseas who posted on her Instagram. She was 16. Hey, I'm feeling kind of down today. Should I kill myself? And 69% of her so-called friends voted yes. And she did. And so there they were like, we need to charge you guys with something because I feel like we just devalue things. Like we devalue people, we devalue relationships. We live sort of in this virtual world. But in addition to this, and I was a single mom. Thankfully, I'm married now. I'm remarried to my best friend, but families are falling apart at record
Yes.
levels. There's a lot of broken homes. There's a lot of
Yes.
working parents. And I get it. I'm a working parent. I always have been. So I try to teach quality over quantity because some of us don't have all the time in the day to give it, but we need to make the time we have count. But I just feel like there's a lot of disconnection with parents and with relationships and a lack of fathers and a lack of family time, family dinners, family outings, family prayer. I mean, there's all kinds of things you could look at, but there's the comparison,
Mm-hmm.
there's a manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard. I'm trying to disconnect to reconnect,
Yep.
disconnect from my stuff so I can set things up and say, hey, we're doing family dinner. Okay, we're not going to do phones this time. We're going to go for a hike or a walk or a bike ride, getting out into nature. We know that's important. And just finding things that make us happy, finding things that give us hope and joy and purpose. If you can't find it, then you need to keep looking, and there's groups out there and there's resources, and I know NAMI and AFSP offer classes. So if you're struggling or if somebody is struggling or if you lost someone, like there's all kinds of resources. The problem is most people don't know where to look for them, and they also feel like it's weak to ask for help. It's
Oh, yeah.
weak to share that they're struggling, and it's not weak. It's strong. It takes strength and faith to say, you know what, I'm kind of having a hard time. I need a little help.
Well, we're also living in a society, everybody wants to pretend everything is okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to be broken. Nobody wants to be broken. But you know what?
Mhm.
We're all going through things. We all are. Every single one of us. We're going through battles and challenges nobody even knows about. You know, when my
Yes.
daughter first attempted, I had to come back and show up at a big meeting and act like nothing was going on when inside I was broken. I was
Mhm.
devastated. It was so hard for me. And I felt like I couldn't talk about it. You know, and that's not what we
Well,
need.
if you did, you also have that. What are you doing as a mother, right? Like
Yeah,
that.
the fear and the judgment to think, you know, oh, you must be horrible. I remember when I worked in news and I was a news reporter and I covered this horrific story about a dad backing over his 2 or 3 year old and the child died. And I remember I went there and I saw everything and I felt really bad, but I was like, God, how irresponsible are they? You know, like that would never happen to me. And literally, it was almost the next week, my 3 year old was backed over by my mom. You know, and it was a fluke freak accident. Luckily, the car stopped in time, but I watched it play out in slow motion. And I just thought to myself, there for the grace of God go I, right? It's like all of us can have everything get swept away in a moment's notice. None of us are better than anyone else. You might think you're the world's greatest parent, and maybe you were, and maybe you tried,
Yes.
but that doesn't mean that you might not go through this because so
Yes.
many of us are. And I think it's brave for us to just talk about it because I can still be a kick butt businesswoman running, you know, multi-million dollar companies and be a mom and be struggling with my kids and be worried about my health or my weight or, you know, whatever it is. It's like, it's okay to be human. That's what we're here for. We're having this human experience and we don't have to pretend like everything's perfect. In fact, the best relationships I've ever had came out from being with people in their worst moments. The time I spent with them in the hospital when it was life or death, and you're there for them, and tears are shed on both ends. I didn't look at them and think they're weak. I looked at them and thought they were human and
Mhm.
lovable. And we bonded and we connected. And those are some of my most important relationships.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. We are going through a turbulence time with our especially the preteens and teens,
yeah,
and it's getting younger and younger. This wanting to fix the self, right? Even there's people who are not happy with kids are not happy with their self-image, who
no,
their
no,
physical.
because they're living in a filtered world though.
Yep,
It's like everything you
delusional.
see is filtered. So when you see yourself in reality, you feel like you're not enough or you don't measure up. And that's not real life. I remember when Photoshop first came out and they were like, whoa, everybody lost their minds thinking, wow, you can Photoshop people. Now, half the people I see in the real world, I don't even recognize because every time they get on social media, they're using these, you know, beauty filters that smooth and slender. And I'm like, I mean, I met somebody and I literally did not even recognize him.
Yes. Yeah,
And I think
it
that that's
gets
part
me
of it.
really. Really gets me when older people, older generation uses them
Mhm.
because we are the people who have to really set stage. I've never used any filter or
Yeah.
anything that I put out into anything because I'm an older generation, so I have to be the role model for my younger people who are looking at this. That you don't need to be perfect. Whatever you got is whatever you are going to be
Yeah.
like.
And
That's beautiful as it is.
I don't use any filters on my social media. I mean, I've played around with cat ears and, you know, bugs and
Yeah.
all the fun filters with my little boy. It's like, okay, that's fun for playing around, but you know, that's not real life. That's a joke. For my stuff, even I got my first, I haven't had professional headshots done in a while, and I did them maybe 6 months ago. And the photographer took a lot of liberty with Photoshop and went in and just smoothed out my wrinkles and my
Mm,
skin and gave me this and this. And I said, you know what? No, put it back. That's not me. And that's not
yes.
what I want to portray. I want people when they meet me in public to go, yeah, she's got a couple of wrinkles. I should. I'm 46. I should have that. I should have, you know, gray hair or two. Or I know I'm not 125 pounds anymore. You know, it's just like, I'm okay with me. I love me. I'm happy
Mhm.
with me. I know my heart. I know what I'm doing. And I don't need to try to be better than what I am because what I am is wonderful.
Yes.
And when we can show that for our children and for the people, I mentor high school and college girls through a group called Women Who Succeed. I think that's really important to me. Be who you are, be who God made you, be proud of who you are, embrace and love it. Don't try to filter it.
Yeah. And that's why I think there's many motivational speakers coming. They have to be very mindful when they're speaking, not to alter their lips. That's not normal lips. You know, those altered lips that stick out.
Yeah.
That's not normal. I don't. We are never born that way. Right? Nobody's born that way, right? If you want
Yeah.
to, these
And
are you can be a motivational speaker and say I went through all of this because I can't take you serious and look past your lips because your lips shows me that you haven't recovered yet from
right.
whatever. You're trying to fix yourself. And then those people become people who motivate others. I feel like that's why our society is also getting into this sickness, right? Because they think my lip has to look like this because, role models, that's what we do. We look up to
Yeah.
them, right? So
Yeah.
it's so false. You're going to be a motivational speaker. If you want to take that stage, remember, just leave yourself alone.
Yeah,
Present
and that's
yourself.
a tricky one because I worked in TV. I was on TV every day. I was doing a show and there was a lot of pressure to look a certain way and to do certain things. And I remember in 2009, I caved to the pressure and I got breast implants.
Mm.
And then I got them removed in 2020 after they almost killed me.
Mm.
And so I always hated it and I always felt fake. And I know there's a fine line because people go, will you color your hair? Yep, I do. That's my natural color. This is the color I like. You
Yeah,
wear makeup. Yeah, I do. I try to accentuate, my stuff. I like makeup.
I do.
But I
Me
think
too.
some people don't like makeup and that's fine. They're still beautiful. Like this is my personal preference. And I did feel fake when I had the implants and I did feel fake with some of this stuff. And I just feel like different strokes for different folks. Like I'm not going to judge you because I've been there and there was a lot of pressure, especially having a TV career to look a certain way. And if everybody's looking this way and you're kind of in the back, like, hey, I got mom bod or whatever, then you feel pressure. But I'm so thankful that I am my age. I'm more happy and confident than I've ever been because I embrace my natural beauty, which is outside, but mostly inside. That's how I see it. What are you putting out there? What are you giving the world? Your heart and your energy and the magnetic field that you radiate is so much more important than what you see here. This will go away.
Yep.
This will stay.
Yes. And we have to install that. And we have to help our younger generation see that. But there is
Mhm.
just so much in their face 24/7 on these devices they're hooked up to that they see, as you said, we're so disconnected, even though we're connected.
Yeah. Well, and if I had lips like you too, I wouldn't get fillers.
It's, I mean, I'm just saying, even if I didn't, you wouldn't see me putting anything else on.
No, I
I
wouldn't.
never looked for it. Like I color my hair a little bit there and here, it doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, going and altering my face will never happen. Like I have big nose, so what? That's me. That's me. I'm sorry, that's me.
No,
You
you look
know?
great.
So
And
it's
I
like
feel
we
it.
always are critics too, right? We're the worst critics, right? Of ourselves, right? My nose is like that, my mouth is
Yeah.
like this. But learning to accept it is something that we have to teach our kids from the early stages.
Yeah. Love who you are, accept who you are. You're beautiful the way you are. Whatever it is, flaws. I look at my daughter. She's beautiful. She thinks she has bad nose. I'm like, you don't you're gorgeous. You're so, you're just beautiful. And I think once we can hopefully teach people to be authentic, be vulnerable, show your real self, show your real heart. You don't need to be anything other than you are.
I think that's a lot of acceptance are starting to happen in many ways, but that also brings another conversation about changing ourselves to whoever we want to be, right? That's also
Yeah.
happening too at the same time. So where do we stop?
And there's always a balance, like as you talk about that, and it's like, well, I'm being authentic and I'm being vulnerable, and then you're rude, and then you're, seriously overweight because you're just like, well, this is who I am. I'm going to eat everything, and it's like, no, okay, there's a balance in all things, right? It's like, okay, love who you are, but if you love who you are, then you kind of want to take care of yourself and make sure that your heart's not going to stop, and that you're making good choices and things like that. And just doing things in moderation, one way or another, on what brings you joy and peace. But I think the key in my life has been finding meaning, finding purpose, doing things that matter. It's like, okay, you're only here for a certain amount of time. What are you going to do with it? And are you going to feel good?
Absolutely. Anything else you want to tell parents who are listening?
Just talk to your kids, spend time with them. I sometimes joke around. I'm like, it's time for forced family fun. Because sometimes they act,
Disconnect.
Yeah, they're like,
Disconnect.
they don't want to do it. You know, I'm like, nope, forced family fun. We're all going to play a card game, or we're all going to go outside and play soccer. Or we're going to do something. And they kind of, I think it's their job to be like, and then they get out there and have a lot of fun. Be the parent. They have friends. Be the parent. Let them know that they're loved. Acknowledge all the good they do. I've learned a ton about, you know, the subconscious and what the programs we're putting on our children until they're 7. So I've been working really hard because I only have about a week left before my little boy turns 7.
Yes.
And I just want to just let them know they're loved. Just love them. Just love them, love them, love them. I tell myself multiple times a day, and my last piece of advice for anyone listening or watching would be choose kindness, give grace, lead with love. Choose kindness, give grace, lead with love. Like that's the answer. Love is always the answer. No matter what it is, love them. Choose the high road, choose kindness, whatever it is, and give them grace because we need grace. We want grace. We ask for grace. So try to give that. And when somebody's cutting you off, when they're being rude, the way people treat you is not about you. It's a reflection of what they're going through. So choose kindness, give grace, lead with love. You'll never regret that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And promise to live.
Promise to live. Promise the number 2 live.org. Please go and make the promise. Share the promise. Together we can bring hope and resources and get people to stick around. There's always hope, and the world is a better place because you exist and because the people watching exist. We need you. Stick around,
Yes.
please.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brandy.
You got it. Thanks.
That was a very, very interesting and scary and thought-provoking conversation we had with Brandy. 4 seconds, every 4 seconds, there's someone trying to take their life. That's a shocking number. And she was sharing so many things with us, why children are at this point, especially now. Why is mental health and suicide rate are so high? Because we are we think we're connected, but at the same time, we're so disconnected. We're not present. We may look like our body is present, but my mind is not present when I'm with my kids, right? You may feel like that. If you're doing that, it's time to change. It's really time to change. I am working on that as well. As you said, we're all connected to our phones, so we have to make time for our family. It's a hard thing to do because we are busy. We have so many things to do, but this is a must because if your child is struggling with no connection, no real connection, not having you present and replacing by cell phone or iPad, it's impossible to connect. So disconnect so that you can really, really connect and be present is really important. So the other thing that she talked about is promise to live. Now, she also said, ask your child, do you have these thoughts? It's a hard conversation. Why would you ask your child that? She said, instead of looking for the signs, really just ask them. I don't know how you think about that. First, when she said that, for me, it came, I don't want to put things into my child's mind if they're not thinking, but you can have a conversation around it. After that, I started thinking about it in a different light, where I said, if I don't ask them, I'll never know. But if I ask them, then we can have a conversation that, many teenagers at this stage, because you may be going through things that you may not know how to talk to another person, that you can share a story about another family who just went through. Like I have families who have lost their kids to drugs, alcohol, and other behaviors. So really asking them is not a bad thing to do. So her advice is very, very, very important to ask, are you having these thoughts? But don't just ask in isolation, but ask and have a conversation. One of the things I find these days with many families is having genuine conversation, genuine connection at home. And you have to make time for that. There is no excuse in that. We all have to make. I don't give myself that excuse either. We all really have to make an effort to do that for our family. So this is a very, very heavy subject. It's not easy to watch your child suffer. So be there for them, have great conversations, be present, Make sure you follow what they're watching. Like you don't give them the phone and think it's replacing you. It'll never replace you. They still need you. You have to be there. These are vital years in their life that you're going to mold. So be that person and parent for them, and really look out for help that's available to you. As she said, there's so much help available that we don't like to think about or talk about until really it happens to us. So let's be proactive and positive parents. And I always say at the center of all this is our precious children. We have to protect them. And I know it's hard these days to be parents, but you can do it. You can do it. And I want to end with her beautiful message. We all have to promise to live, and we have to protect our children. Thank you, and I'll see you on another show.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Our purpose for this episode was to spark a reevaluation of the current education system. For more episodes offering practical and comprehensive strategies to enhance learning, please visit www.learningsuccessacademy.com. It is crucial to ensure that children have access to the holistic neurogrowth learning approach, enabling them to break free from the constraints of an outdated educational framework. This is your opportunity to gain insight and break away from a flawed system, setting your children on a path to lifelong success that truly nurtures their thirst for knowledge. That's all for now. We look forward to having you join us for the next episode.